All right, what's up, Zach? It is Friday. I hope everybody's doing great. I'm excited to have you back. We've three straight wins. This is the fourth podcast. No pressure or
No,
anything.
I know, no pressure. This is a must win now. I mean, 4-0 would be an impressive start to the pod.
So I want to start. There's two things I want to get into before we get to this week's Ravens game. The first thing is I know I'm not the only person that knows this, but Michael Pierce. I don't know if one person can win a football game by themselves, especially a defensive tackle.
Yeah.
But was that the best game, first of all, that you've seen from a defender? No, like he was just so good, ruined the entire game for the Cardinals. I want to spend a couple minutes on him.
Yeah, I think I even commented on this on a few shows. I have not watched a run stuffing nose tackle take over a game like that in I don't know if ever, like you said. It was truly incredible. Just even in the pass rush game, which you don't see that from Michael Pierce, but he was getting penetration, he was getting sacks, getting pressure. And then at times it felt like it was only him out there on defense, and he was still getting it done. It would be like, oh, -3 yard loss, and guess who? Next play, sack, guess who? And it's like, I mean, man, for not a large, well, massive human, but he's only like 6 foot and 300 pounds. So it's impressive that he can move as fast as he does.
He deflected the one ball. I think it was the fourth down play where he got
Yep.
the ball. I don't know if that ball was going to be completed anyway, but he
Yeah.
was just fantastic. That was one thing. And the reason I wanted to start with him is because I'm assuming you watched the Titans Steelers game last night.
Yeah, which was Steelers just always find a way.
It was
It's impressive. It's impressive.
I'm watching, and I think Amazon has the best broadcast. Like,
Mhm.
it's so clear. And I was just,
Yeah.
I really wanted to spend time. I don't know why. I just felt like a nerd yesterday, but I was really
Mhm.
watching the defensive line because Jeffrey Simmons on the Titans is like one of my favorite players. And I was just
Yeah.
watching what he was doing. And anyway, what it led me into is as I'm watching the game, I'm like, yeah, the game's not great. Like, this is happening, that's happening. But I saw enough yesterday. And I'm curious to hear what you think, but I saw enough from Levis, the Titans quarterback, that not only do I think they found their quarterback, I actually think the Titans are going to end up making the playoffs, and they're going to be a team that I wouldn't want to play. I really came away from that game. Yeah, the Steelers get lucky; they find a way to win.
Mhm.
Such a long season. I look at everything. I'm like, the Titans are going to be the 6 or 7 seed, and I actually really like their roster. I was curious
Yeah.
your thoughts.
Yeah. The moment like last week, obviously, I was very hyped up. It was really cool to see what Levis did and everything. But I was still a little like, okay, let's see what he can do this week. The moment I was like, oh, this is the guy, was at the end of the first half, the way he ran that 1 minute drill. Should have had a go ahead touchdown, but the running back pedals instead, whatever. But that was that moment where the way he was poised and he was able to, in just his second NFL game, drive down the field efficiently, knew when to go clock it, knew when to, okay, we got to get out of bounds. It was, I'm very excited about Will Levis, and which sucks because obviously Titans are a little bit of a rival of the Ravens. So it's like it was fun when we could beat up on them. But yeah, they look like they have a dude down in Tennessee. He's giving me major Josh Allen vibes.
I was gonna say it kind of gave me some Trevor Lawrence when
Mm-hmm.
just there you can just tell when a guy's willing to throw the ball down the field and the coach
Yeah.
throw the ball down the field. That's usually a good sign. All right, Titans Steelers. Not it's funny because the Ravens have evolved, right? Titans Steelers are
Yeah.
still stuck playing football the way we used to play football.
Yeah.
Let's get right into it because it has been, I mean, it's been awesome, right? The offense looks like
Yeah.
it's clicking back to back weeks. We get a Seattle team that there's two things that jump out at me about Seattle. First thing
Mm.
is they travel better than any other West Coast team historically under Pete Carroll. So even though it's a 1 o'clock
Yes.
game, I'm not putting too much stock
Yeah.
into it. Then the second thing is Seattle will beat themselves if we let them. I feel like Seattle, they'll feed off the turnovers, and as long as I don't want to be boring, but I feel like Seattle will make mistakes if we're
Mm.
conservative and we don't try too much. But I do think Seattle's opportunistic.
Yep.
They
That's
scare.
the perfect word.
Okay.
That is the opportunistic. It's because exactly like you said, they will beat themselves if you let them, but they just wait for that moment where you mess up,
Mhm.
and then they're going to take advantage of it and find a way. They're going to hang in there, and they're going to sit there and wait for somebody to make a mistake. It could be them, but that's how they are going to decide the game.
So the way that Seattle, I think they're going to play into our hands in the sense that most teams go into the game thinking we got to keep Lamar off the field. What that
Mm,
leads to, especially if you like your running game, is you try to run
yep.
the ball, which makes us happy. I think Ravens fans know that the best way to beat the Ravens is you got to spread us out, go no huddle, keep Pierce. As soon as we get to rotate that defensive line, but it's taboo for an offense to come, especially on the road against the
Mm,
Ravens, and go no huddle because then you're like, well, Lamar's going to be on the field a lot. So I think we have teams kind of in a vice grip right now where it's like, how do you
mm,
attack the Ravens? What's the best strategy? And if Seattle wants to come out and play old school football with Kenneth Walker, I'm happy.
yeah.
However,
Yes.
they do have the weapons to spread us out. I don't know if they have the quarterback to get them the ball.
Mm,
Um, how do you see? Well, let me ask more specifically. If you're the Ravens, you go in against Geno Smith, you got all those receivers. Is this a game where we want to blitz them? Is this a game where we want to be a little bit conservative? What do you think is the
yeah.
right strategy against them?
I think you got to get after Geno. I think he's one of those quarterbacks where if we let him sit back there, he's smart enough, he's a good enough veteran presence, he knows the game well enough where he will find with those weapons, he's going to find someone. Someone's going to get open. So I think Mike McDonald is going to, when we say blitz, it's interesting with Mike McDonald because that doesn't necessarily mean we bring
Not
5 or 6 guys,
right.
because sometimes we'll see D linemen drop back and a safety, come in. So I think we're going to see really focus on getting pressure on Geno and kind of like you said, make them create a mistake, make them make a mistake, turn it over, have some sort of interception in the red zone, something like that.
Did you watch a lot of the Bengals Seahawks game after I watched almost all of that game, and
Yeah.
so Geno's problem is he'll hold the ball too long.
Mhm.
And you know what I was going to say when you were talking about blitzing? It's not like Wink's defense where everybody's blitzing. It's more
Yeah.
nuanced. I feel great about the Ravens winning this game as long as the game plan doesn't like. I don't want us to go into any game, frankly, and this is just where
Mhm.
my confidence is with the defense, and it's probably my lack of confidence with the offense. But to me, our identity is playing good, solid defense. Let the
Yep.
other team make the mistake. We can be dynamic if we absolutely have to. We can win 35-34 if we need to.
Mhm.
But I think I'm leaning towards 2017 games this year. I'm just very high on the defense, which leads into obviously the trade deadline was boring. Nothing happened.
Yeah.
I didn't think we needed to do anything. So I didn't really care. Bringing in another running back might have been something, another pass rush,
Yeah.
something. But I like the chemistry. I like what we're doing. I wanted to know if you were a little disappointed after the trade deadline, or what were your thoughts?
I think disappointed just because as a fan you want that splash. You wanted the Derrick Henry's coming, Josh Jacobs is coming. But at the end of the day, the guys that we need are in house. It was more trading was a luxury, not a necessity. Where in other years we needed to make a trade
Right.
to fill in a hole. This year it would have just been the icing on the cake. Eric DaCosta, you've seen reports, he was extremely active trying to get something done. Didn't get anything that he saw was worth it. So at the end of the day, would I have loved to have suddenly had Derrick Henry to add to the team? Yeah, I would have loved to have a Daniil Hunter, Chase Young, but this team, as much as I've harped on, I wanted to get a pass rusher, they still lead the league in sacks. So they've gotten the job done.
And it's a topic for after the season, but our cap situation is not pleasant, right? So
Yeah.
that's something that we have to take into account. We're going to have to rebuild the team after. I think they'll be able to swing it next year, and then things get very complicated. So there's a lot that goes into it. I wouldn't look too much. It's not like we don't think that we can win this year, and that's why we didn't pull the
Yeah.
trigger. It's just a third round pick for somebody that you're not going to re-sign. Like there's no money to
Yeah.
re-sign Young or Hunter, and I get it. It's a calculus. So
Yeah. Exactly. It's one of those things where if the Ravens were one guy away and they felt there was a a massive hole, they would have gone for it. But they have I think they're confident in where they stand with the roster enough to they're like, okay, we have a Super Bowl winning roster. We have all the guys we need here. If we can get a guy for the right price, we'll get him. If not, we're rolling. And they didn't see anything they like, so we're rolling.
Yeah, and I think look, we're going to break down the Ravens game next week. I'm excited to see what will happen, but I didn't even tell you we're going to do this. But I wanted to spend a few minutes on the Orioles as the last. This would be our last chit chat about the Orioles until something happens. But this is what I wanted to hit you with because for those of you that don't know, Zach, and forgive me, but I know it's you and Ryan, and who's your other friend that does?
And Brad.
You guys do podcasts together, and you had Kyle Bradish on, what was it, last week?
On Monday. Yeah, so he was on Monday.
So well, I want to ask you two things. I'm going to start with that. And then Zach, so if you guys aren't following Zach, this is a shameless plug, but you really should. Because I just watched your video the other night. It was like a 5-minute video that you did on the Rangers team building, how they got to the lineup. And Zach is, when there's fans, there's people that know stuff, and then like Zach's in a different category. I don't know how often he's sleeping or what else he's doing with himself.
Not much, but it's fun.
It's great content. And when I look back on this season, there's a couple from the Orioles perspective, the Kyle Bradish curveball, right? Like that dirty, the Cano curve, like this dirt and Batista, some of the pitches, and it was just fantastic to watch where you're like, why are the best players in baseball swinging at this crap? And it's like, so, but on a personal note, how was interviewing him? Whatever opinions you had about him beforehand, did you learn anything? Give me a little insight.
It is funny. He is as cool as it gets. Like he gets on screen, and we were joking with Ryan because Ryan is good friends with him, and Ryan Ripken's like, yeah, looks wise, you're like, okay, does he like people? And he is just a super funny. Like it was one of those reassuring moments of like, I have this perspective of the team all just being friends, and like it's just guys being guys, and talking to him, you got exactly that feeling from it, And the biggest thing I took away from it was we were talking about the playoffs. And even down 0-2, he said, not a single person in the clubhouse lacked confidence. Everything is like in their head. They literally were like, wow, we did this to ourselves, and now we just are going to have to go win 3 straight. Like they didn't think it was over. None of them. They just were more like, I can't believe we really inconvenienced ourselves and now have to go out and win 3 straight. And it was really funny because they just assumed it was going to happen. They were just like, yeah, we've done this a million times this year. We'll just go win the ball game. And, at the end of the day, we ran into a buzzsaw. I mean,
we'll talk about I was going to say, is your video, like you went through it. We're here. This is a sports betting podcast, but as we continue to evolve, I want people to be smarter. I want people to understand, because if you're going to bet on sports, I'd say it time and time again, find people like Zach. They don't have to bet on sports. I mean, Zach's not a gambler, but he knows so much and gives you some information, especially when you're making, whether it's future bets or whatever. Why don't you recap in your own, in your own words, from your own words, how the Rangers pull it off? What was your main takeaway diving into how they built this team?
They did the exact opposite of the Orioles. Josh Young is the only guy really contributing right now that they drafted. They were major. I don't want to say you ever get lucky on, getting guys that have been DFA'd or cut from a few other teams, but the Adolis Garcias, the Jonah Heims, guys like that became their core, all were given up on by other teams, which I thought was a really cool aspect of kind of like the core of their team is a lot of guys that were DFA'd, traded for cash, stuff like that got there and then sort of built. There were a lot of guys that were on the wrong end of big trade line deals. They were the ones going to Texas from the Yankees for Joey Gallo, stuff like that. And then they finally ended it, which is where we are with the Orioles. They said enough is enough. we got to go spend and get the final pieces. And would you look at that? The confetti falls in
That's
Texas.
Simeon, Seager. So the top two guys in the lineup
Mhm.
bought, and then obviously the pitchers, which and it almost like they had the good karma of spending the money because even though they're what Scherzer couldn't finish, DeGrom couldn't finish.
DeGrom couldn't. Yeah, it's so crazy. Don't you just love baseball? They spend $200 million on Jacob DeGrom this offseason. He pitches in 6 games. Tommy John, and then they win the World Series without him.
You
But
know, well,
it shows you, I
uh,
was going to say real quick, it shows you the importance of don't necessarily need to go out and, man, I hope Oriole fans listen to this. You don't need to spend $250 million on a pitcher to go win the World Series. Nathan Eovaldi is getting like $15 million a year for 2 years and is dominating in the postseason. You need a guy like that. You don't necessarily – people get upset if the Orioles don't drop a $250 million contract this offseason. They're going to get guys that you saw with the Rangers, trading for Jordan Montgomery, getting Nathan Eovaldi. It doesn't need to be the blockbuster. We signed Jacob DeGrom to go and impact this.
there's two. Yeah, I was gonna say that I think the trades this year is actually what's gonna happen in the offseason. And
Yeah.
everyone has an ego, whether you can see it or not, but especially to make it to the highest levels and being a team builder like Mike Elias, the ego there is I don't want to spend the money. Like in a way, it's like, man, he can have any job he wants. As soon as you spend the $200 million, it's like, well, you spend $200 million. So I think the challenge for him, and I think the challenge for Orioles fans emotionally, is we're going to end up trading a couple of players that we all really, really like.
Yeah.
Because we are overloaded in some areas, and we need help in other areas. Trust me, when the Ravens season's over and it's really cold outside, we'll spend hours talking about.
Oh, yeah.
But I wanted people, and it's not just like I said, shameless plug, but I want people when they're betting on sports, right, to figure out who can I trust to get information from. You don't even have to like the person. You want to find different perspectives. And when I look at this Ravens Seahawks game, it's like literally I'll type into Twitter because I'm not familiar with the Seahawks, or I'll type into Google Seahawks beat reporters and like 3 or 4 or their Seahawks blog. And then until I find somebody, I'm like, you know what? I like that guy. I'll read what he has to say because I'd rather see how are the Seahawks preparing for the Ravens, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with press conferences. If you want to just do your own homework, listen to the coaches. They won't tell you everything, but they'll tell you enough.
No.
You can start to
you eventually start to pick up when you do it enough on coach talk, and then you can really start. Because at first, when you first start watching it, you're like, he said nothing. And then you realize that him saying nothing is him saying something.
Like specifically speaking, you would be the perfect person. If someone's going to bet the Orioles every single night, you will know ahead of time what bullpen guys we're going to use. You're not going to tell people, hey, I know we're going to win tonight, but you can say, I know so-and-so is not pitching tonight. And that's how you start to find value. So,
exactly.
I'm going to close out with this, put you on the spot with something. So we like the Ravens. First, give me your final score. I think you said, what did you say last time? You said it was going to be a 4-quarter. I don't think I made you give me a score last time.
I just knew it. I said Ravens were going to win, but it was going to be 4 quarters, which they found a way. It didn't look like it was going to be 4 quarters.
I thought I was getting my nap in. I thought I was getting my afternoon nap in. You told me it was going to be 4 quarters, and of course, it turns into 4 quarters.
I know. I was like, they started to pull away, and I was like, oh, thank God, a non-stressful game. Missed the onside kick. I was like,
so let me ask it to you this way: is it more likely 30 that we score 31 and it's like 31-28, 31-24, or
no? It's going to be low scoring. This is going to be low scoring. Yeah, this is going to be. I said last night on the show, this is we win on a Justin Tucker field goal as time expires. That's just real. That it gives me that kind of vibe in this game. It's going to be a gritty, grinded out game. 20-17, just ends with a field goal.
Like it. All right, get you out on this. Put you on the spot. We're about halfway through the season. Give me one team. I think the Titans are my team. I want one team that nobody's really giving a chance anymore, or a team that people have penciled in for the playoffs, that you're waving the red flag. So for me, I think the Titans, especially after what I saw yesterday, I wouldn't be surprised if Jacksonville kind of slipped up and Titans won that division with 9 games like last year, or at least they get into the wild card. And I still don't like, I'll give you a second to think as I'm telling you, and I still don't like the Cowboys. I'm not sold on Dallas.
Yeah,
Where
I'm not either.
you have a hot take for halfway through the NFL season for us?
The team that just scares the crap out of me because of their defense is just going to continue to be the Jets. And I keep telling myself Aaron Rodgers isn't returning, and then I'm seeing him do stuff pregame that a man who tore his Achilles 2 months ago should not be doing. And I was a complete non-believer in this team and everything about the Jets after he went down. I was like, okay, he's not returning this year, yada, yada. And now that they just keep winning. I mean, they're a team
Jets end up winning a playoff game in January. That's not going to shock you.
No, and and this is even crazier, even if it's Zach Wilson at the quarterback, because the defense is that good. That defense, especially that secondary, well, everywhere about that defense, but secondary especially, they're scary. That's a scary group out there.
Cool. Well, Zach, I appreciate you doing this. I encourage everybody, check out you and Ryan and Brad do it Mondays and Thursdays. It's live. So you can find all that information on your Twitter. And
Awesome. Zach Bollinger 18 on Twitter. Fun as always. Another great time. Hopefully we go 4-0.
I was going to say, as long as this keeps happening and, every Friday, it's good news.
Yeah, I know. Awesome.
All right. See you, Zach.
Awesome. Have a good one.